Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're listening to us from. Welcome to yet another episode of Footprints, a podcast that tells the stories and shares the wisdom and lessons from our elders. Today we are honored to host Victoria Sekitoleko, and she's going to tell us a bit about herself. Victoria, you're absolutely welcome. We're excited to have you. Please tell us a bit about yourself.
First of all, it is a pleasure to be here. And honestly, it is a joy to be me. In fact, the few times when I remember to pray, because sometimes I forget, that those times when I remember to pray, I thank God for creating me as me, for loving me, blessing me, and always being in my corner. So, you want to know about me? I consider myself blessed. I was born quite a long time ago. And the other day we were traveling along Tororo Jinja Road, and we got to a place called Idudi, where they sell the chicken and the mangoes and whatever. And I remembered that is where my parents used to stay before. That is where our father used to stay before he got married. Then he moved from there to Jinja District. And I'm like, that was a fantastic May. Of course, given a choice, do you want to come from Idudi? Do you want to come from Jinja? So I like I said, we moved to Jinja, and I was once again lucky that when I was doing my primary school, the last 2 years of primary school, I was lucky to go to Walikuba Estate School. Walikuba Estate School is in Jinja City, and when I got there, the medium of instruction was pure like in English. So by the time I sat the exam of P6, which was in English, no problem. I mastered the language, so the answers came easy. And by just the fact that I was able to answer the questions and of course passed, I went to the best school of the day, which was Iganga Junior School. Which school I started? Yeah. Which school I still like? Iganga. At that time it was Iganga Girls Junior School. But now it has metamorphosed into Iganga Senior Secondary School.
Yeah. So when you think back in your primary years, what is like the one favorite memory you have of that time?
I don't know whether it is a favorite memory. I will call it a concert memory. Because my father was a retired policeman, turned into a farmer, and later turned into a politician. He knew what he wanted out of his children, especially his daughters. So when we went to P1, P2, he did not like the school. And some things happened. Then I said it didn't add up. The school didn't like us either. So we were thrown out of school. Three of us, me and my two sisters, were thrown out of school. That was in P2. So P3, we went to another school. Which school was in Mbale? Medium of instruction. Kisuru Masawa. So in 1 year, I had to do my P3. I had to learn a new language. And I had to learn to stay with another member of the Sekitoleko. So my father is like, this is not working. I just mastered that it is. Then he moves me again. So we moved to Kujiri, where my maternal grandparents used to stay. I stay with them to do my primary 4. Then after primary 4, the school runs out of classes. That school only went as far as before. So I moved on. That is when I landed into Walikuba Estate School. So what is the memory I carry? Always on the move.
Yes. And there was a book long ago, I don't know if you did it in your years, People on the Move. It was a history book. So when did Gayaza happen?
Yeah, Iganga, as I told you, that was the best school. Is the one which led me to Gayaza. And it did so well that I was among the top 20 best Ugandan students. So I got a full scholarship. When I was at Gayaza, I never paid a penny.
Wow.
That from senior 6.
No. First wait. So when you went to Gayaza S1 to S6?
Yes. During our days, do an examination in P6. That's the one I was telling you was in that school teachers in English. So I did well and went to Iganga Girls Junior School. That used to be a 2 or 3 year school. You to do a junior secondary school. So if you did not do well in junior 2, you went back to do junior 3. But I think that thing was put there to keep an eye on these girls. This is what used to happen. You do your junior 2 and level certificate, then you go there to be junior 3. But during that time, you are busy writing applications. If you want to go to be a nurse, you write from the school. You want to go be a teacher, you want to go whatever you wanted, you did at the schools, which I think was so nice. Because otherwise, you would have lost all those girls. And I wonder why. Because, for me, one of the programs I'm not enthusiastic about is programs for school dropouts. Because the question I ask is, where were we when they were dropping out of school? Catch them, yeah. Yeah. So that school which I was going to used to catch them, yeah. You have not made it to Gayaza or whatever. We shall make sure you neighbor girls just go to Mego, Morocco, Nazam, yeah. Nursing, then the teacher training colleges, then Nakawa secretarial order.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you arrive in Gayaza this year, your year is celebrating.
1964. And it is 6 years since we arrived in Gayaza. I just can't believe that we have been friends with my classmates for the last 6 years.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is amazing. Do you remember your first day? Can you paint us a picture? All the way from Jinja.
I remember my first day because my father took me to, we came from home. There used to be a bus which was always full. It is like, it was full in the factory before it got onto the road. Honestly, I never saw that bus. Full. So somehow I would get in there. I said I would get to the roadside at about 7. Sometimes it would arrive at 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 11:30. And sometimes you would wait for it at about 12. Then this is a very emotional sentence. I hope I would cry. Then some bicycle person would look at you and with slowly looking eyes say, the bus has collapsed. It's about 5 kilometers from our place. And at that time, alternatives were not many. But that particular time when I was going for the first time, the good bus came on time. So we go to Jinja. My father completed whatever shopping he was doing for me. And we got onto another bus to bring us to Kampala. Now, guys, I had sent specific instructions. When you get to Kampala, go to the bus park. You see buses labeled Gayaza. So my father got me onto that bus and said, this is it. So he went away. Yes, he went away. And I sat in the bus, waited for other girls. I still remember the girl I sat next to. Unfortunately, God rest her soul. She passed on. She was called Lilian Choktamba. Then there was another girl called Ida Batisibwa. Those two, because I remember the seat was for 3 people. Yeah. So my first day, of course, the bus eventually takes us to the school. During those days, the Siaons would arrive before anybody else. So when you get there, you are received by the teachers. They show you dormitory and so on and so forth. So the first day ends up really not being very eventful because all that is happening is for somebody to show you it is the dining room, it is time to eat, so you go and eat. But what I remember most was that day the rest of the school came. It looks like they just couldn't wait to meet us. Yeah. They couldn't wait to meet us. So this one would be greeting you, I'm so and so, and the other one would be greeting you, I'm so and so. I don't know if I'm the only one. I don't know if, I don't know. But I honestly felt so loved that those girls, some of them were 3, 4, 5 years older than me. Until now we are friends. So much so that whenever I hear people complaining about bullying, I normally call one of them and say, when people talk about bullying, I think about you. And I wonder if I would still know you if you had bullied. Where would we be? Yeah. I know one of them is called Flavia and Sulgal Kanemo. Oh, she was so nice. She has a sweet, gentle smile. So she would come in the body, Victoria. But then that one would go. Then there was another god, Victoria Mbuanya. Victoria Mbuanya ended up being our prefect. She said, Victoria, if you have any problem, make sure to tell me, okay? It is a new school, and I'm here too. So for us, we were really we had babysitters, we had caregivers, we were loved. No wonder. But you can't give what you don't have. No wonder we still love each other because we were surrounded by a sea of love.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and surrounded by a sea of love. That's beautiful. So those of us who come to know you many years later have always known you as a leader. But how did that journey start for you?
How did that journey start for me? I think it started at home. First of all, my father gave birth to 5 daughters before getting his first son. And for an African man, that was like the unthinkable. I'm the third daughter. So, 2 girls before me, 2 girls after me. As you can see, I'm really ordinary. But my father, first of all, people used, including our mother, used to refer to us, girls, where are you girls? Our father said, no, it will be an anybody. So we come, Victoria, where are you? Joy, come and read. It's Annette, where is your homework? So, right from the word go, our father kept telling us that for him, he has given past leaders. And I remember one time we were arguing with him and say, but we cannot all be leaders. Is that what the world is big? You said you are not going to lead here because you are not going to just stay here. I'm preparing you for the world. In fact, even this business of ending up at Gayaza was my father's choice. Oh. Because when my father was a policeman at Insanjefo, that where the training school was, he heard about Gayaza, and I guess he saw some Gayaza girls. So that is well before he got married, he made a mental note, if I ever get a daughter, she has to go to Gayaza. So when I went to Gayaza, of course, by then I did not know that I was fulfilling his dream. But then he was so excited, no wonder he put me in the pastoral David campus.
Wow, yeah. So you were needed right from home.
So the leadership started from home. But another thing, when I was in P6, I was a class prefect. Then when I was in my junior secondary school, which I told you about, it was impossible for me to be anything other than study my books. Basically because I did not have school fees. And at one time, I was thrown out of school for about 2.5 months. You know, you get back the middle of the year. I remember it was around end of May. And they sent me home to go and bring school fees like I forgot. It was there and I forgot it. Yes. So I go home, May ends, June starts, July, and I'm still home here. So one day, the headmistress sent a message, a telegram at that time, telling me, forget about the school fees, just come back to school. So with that type of interruption, it becomes a bit difficult to go into anything else. I just concentrated on my books. But when I went to Gayaza, because leaders really start early. When I went to Gayaza, I ended up being a house prefect.
Of which house?
I was in now. My stories. First of all, I'm from Kobe. But then, when we had elections for prefects, Kobe ended up with two prefects, and Shabon had 1 prefect. But then the one Shabon had elected became Bipte Edgar, so Shabon didn't have a prefect. So I was moved from Kobe, which was the last house, to Shabon, which was the first house near the gate. And as you know, when you are in HSC and you are prefect for Shabon, you don't say Shabon, you say Mary Stewart. So I'm one of those very rare ones who has got 3 houses. Kobe, Shabon, and Lady Joas.
That's very interesting. Okay, so you were a house prefect.
I was a house prefect, but it takes me back to that business of changing schools, and whatever. I got used to changes. I always on the move. I got used to changes. So when I got to Shabon, of course, I quickly had to know who I was dealing with, know the house leaders, and so on and so forth. And that type of experience actually prepares you for the future. Because eventually, when I'm working, I worked with the bank for 13 years. During that bank, Development Bank, during that time, we did not have strong women movements, but some of us were already at it. I started the women's wing, which was not registered anywhere. It was managed by word of mouth in the banks. Yes. So we would have meetings. We would have people over to talk to us. And it went on like that until...
What made that particularly important to you to do that?
One, when I joined Uganda Development Bank, my job was technical, because I studied agriculture. So I was an agriculture branch officer. And during those days, there were not many women leaders in banks. So nearly the whole top of the bar were men. And somehow we had to survive under that element. So we would have feminine issues. Like there was a time when water was a problem. And at that time, we used to be that building, I think they call it Akakan now, whatever. But it used to be IBS, the building right outside the Parliament, which is 7 floors. So now and then there would be no water. And as you and I know, you just can't survive when there's no water. So we would have to get together and talk to management. Say, we don't care how you do it, we have to have water. So I somehow worked myself out of the technical department into administration. So at one time I was head of personnel and administration. And that gave me the leeway to do a few things different because as a head of administration, by then we did not have what they call personnel, HR, human resource. Yeah, and I said this about HR. I think I'm too soft-hearted to be HR. So anyway, we started meeting until 1985, I think, when HIV and AIDS was ravaging Uganda. That's when I told these women. No, I actually had a doctor friend. She's called Dr. Kajumba Mganga, who is also an OGSM plus. She used to come and supply first aid kits to that bank. And now and then you could have free consultation with her then before you go to her clinic. And she told me, this is not confidence or whatever. I'm not telling you anything we shouldn't know. But I just want you to know that there is so much sexually transmitted diseases in this bank that if you don't do something, most of these people may die. So I told the women that had been told that, and we have been advised to bring an expert to talk to us. So this time it was a bit difficult to do it quietly. So I go to the general manager and I tell him, I'm inviting Professor Jinja because Professor Jinja is microbiology, and I wanted him to talk to us about HIV and AIDS because it was gaining strength. So when he accepted, there was no way I was going to smuggle him onto the bank. I went and told the general manager. The general manager said, how much I paid him? I said, nothing. And he agreed to come. I said, yes. I said, okay, I'll give him lunch and tell him to come at 12. He's going to meet you people at 12 o'clock. So he came, and until about 2:30, they were still hooked up in general manager's office. So 2:30, the general manager comes out, tells the secretary to the bank, gather everybody at the boardroom. Of course, the boardroom was very small, said, if need be, get out the chairs. Everybody is going to listen to this. So we go in there. I'll never forget. I remember it was a Friday. I had never had any details. It was still in boomers, HIV and AIDS, slim, whatever. So by the time Professor Jinja was finished with us, it was coming to about 6 o'clock. And I will never forget his parting shot. He said, I really apologize for spoiling your weekend. But it is better for you to lose this weekend and last a local life, rather let this weekend go with you. So that is when the general manager called me and said, so you mean you've been doing all these things without telling us? So this business of you are talking to the girls and not on the men started in long time ago. Yeah. So the one thing now that when I look back at what I was doing, like I told you, it was really personal to me. Leadership is not normally bequeathed. It looks like you are born, maybe you are born and then some people unconsciously nurture you into a leader. Yeah, because like you're asking, how did I, even for me, there's nothing I can tell you that this is how it metamorphosed and I kept that is out the care of the women. Yeah.
Wow. And the journey into politics, how did that happen?
Partly, where this leadership comes in, because at that time, these days everybody's being told, but Jackie, what else do you do besides the being a banker or whatever? Even at that time, people had side gigs. Only once again they were quiet. At that time, I used to be the secretary general of an organization called the Friendly Hands. And the Friendly Hands, our job was to look at the economic status of people and see what we can do in order to make them sustainably rich. Meaning, get you out of your poverty. We don't move you anywhere. We use what you have where you are to assist you get on with your life. So I was the Secretary General of that organization. And as such, that organization was a member of the non-government organizations for women. So when we had elections for, I think that would be now or now, I was elected the chair. So I was chairing the NGOs for women. That's it. Between the bank and being chair of that organization is how I ended up in Washington, second last preparatory meeting for the Women's World meeting who took place in Nairobi. Because I will never know when I met it, but I am there doing my banking and whatever, and I get information that I've been invited to Washington for that preparatory meeting. And once again, the one thing I'll never forget, here is a woman who had, by that time, I'd flown to Hatuma, flown to Addis and Tanzania. All of a sudden, I'm flying first class to Washington. I get to Washington and I'm staying in Capitol Hilton. Capitol Hilton is the hotel directly opposite White House.
Wow.
This is a bunker in Uganda. So anyway, when I came back and were organizing the trip to Nairobi to go for the World Women meeting, of course I continued caring, and of course politics starts. The government delegation, of course, was led by a government person who I have forgotten, but I remember there was Mrs. Kirunda, there was why Mrs. Kirunda was on government or whatever, I don't know. And for us as NGOs, I was leading the non-government organizations. And we arrived there a week before the government arrived, because the NGO meeting takes place the most. So as we are there and we are attending this meeting, we are knowing what else is going on in the world. We agree as Ugandans that when we come back, we are going to start an organization to actually support other women organizations, either to start, maintain, sustain, manage themselves. That is where Action for Development was hatched. And that is why I'm a founder member of Action for Development. So now when we get back here, at that time, of course, the war was raging. We are talking about 1985. When we get back here and those meetings are going on, and 1986 arrives, and NRM is in power, we decide to go and meet the president. So because I'm the chair, and this is non-government organization, I lead the delegation. And with this delegation, we get together and we put together 5 names for which we are going to lobby. We want ministerial posts. I carried the list, but I was not on it. But that was around March, because March, as you know, is Women's Month.
Yes. March 80s.
Yeah, March 86. Yeah, but even at that time, we had given ourselves a whole week. So that first week of March, we were celebrating. I remember, I think Monday it was the teachers, Tuesday it was it was education, then it was health, then it was finance and money and economy and so on and so forth, until Saturday. Saturday was the real election. And I will never forget that whole place was full. By Thursday, we knew that I think the minister for gender or something like that was going to be our guest of honor. But then I get a message saying, no, the president is coming. They make no problem, we are there. So all that sort of kept pushing me. Like I said, it is difficult. It is not like just be quit. You somehow grow into it. So when my name comes out as the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, that is how it had developed.
Yeah. So over your long arc of leading and growing into the agricultural side of your skilling and education, what would you say is one of your proudest moments as a leader? And what would you say is a moment where your leadership was tested?
I think my proudest moment as a leader happened at Serena Hotel Gardens. That is when I was saying goodbye to being a minister of agriculture and marine industry and forestry and whatever in Uganda to go and become a director of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Because if you are a leader, you, like I said, always on the move, you have to move. Otherwise, people get jittery and lose hope. Yeah. So when I've had quite a number of young people tell me they would like to take my career path. And I'm like, God help you. Enjoy it. I enjoyed it, so you should also enjoy it. So that day when I was enjoying my glass of beer and saying goodbye to my friends and explaining how I got it, I think is the day I'll always remember with you. Yeah. Because when people have been in certain positions and that they're moving on a race, they behave like there is a death in the family. So for me, that is one day I remember and I always laugh. But as opposed, I'll tell you what happened when I was appointed minister. Honestly, I was still young. As I said, I had been a banker all my life. And there were no former women ministers. So there was nobody to call to say, how do you do?
And Marco for yes. You were the first.
I was appointed at the same time with Joyce, Gertrude Iganga, and I think Gertrude Lubega. But we were all at par. Then eventually we were joined by Betty Bikombe and later by whatever Speciosa. But there were no former women ministers to call and say, how do I do this?
So what is the moment that tested you as a leader?
I think once again around that time, because the party I'm talking about where I said goodbye was at the beginning of 1995, but around August, September, October, well, that was 95 and 96, because during 95 we were working on the constitution. So it was finished in 96 and there was going to be another election in 96. So Uganda, as you know, we live for elections, had already started preparing for 1996. And somebody had already started lining up the person to take my seat. So much so that in September there was a big meeting somewhere. And of course I was not there. And one of my friends, I used to call him my uncle, but he was MP in one of the constituencies back home, calls me and says, we watched this meeting, but we were not there. So and so seems to be lining up to do this and the other. And I'm like, Koja, don't worry, I'll be just fine. Because by then, the consultations, because the UN job, you don't get it walk in and you get it. By then, the consultations had started and so on and so forth. So I was in bother. But it is very, very difficult to keep certain things under wraps. Because the one thing about me, Jackie, I don't share. My boundaries are very clear. There are certain things I never share. Like when I was working on that parting from the government, it was between the president, my family, and I. Nobody else. It was nobody else's business. Yes. So at that time, I had to keep it under wraps for 6 months. You are going for these meetings, you are going for this consultation. You feel like busting out and saying, never mind, I'm leaving anyway. So that is what then too. Really, I had put in a lot of my time, work, and passion and all that. So much so that when I looked at the way some of my colleagues were believing, I'm like, thank God I'm leaving. And if any woman is looking forward to becoming a leader, that is one thing you should never relax about. Normally, you are your own person. Like I said, the only other person you need in your corner is your God. But in politics, there's no love. They like you because and then maybe you have something which they can benefit from. Otherwise, they don't like you when you shine. They don't like you when you succeed. You name it. So for me, after doing all that, because 1995 was a culmination of what had been happening. Under Maif Minto Wakatan Mo Industrial and Forestry, we used to organize the best farmer competition. And it started small-ish, but for me, I don't do small things. So we went and talked to President Office and said, since we are celebrating 26th January as the Liberation Day, whatever it was, and Uganda is other culture cut, why don't we award these, why don't we turn this into an award ceremony for the best farmer? Of course, by then I remember Honorary Chentum was in charge of the presidency, and he's a nice person. Said, all right, let us do that. Let us do something different. So we go to Kororo, and Kororo was full, but more than half were from the agribusiness sector. So that means, as like, what is happening here? Where is our ministry? Hey, I'm not in charge of your ministry. The president is there. President says there. You can talk to them. So 2 years down the line, they made it difficult for us to be there. So I did what everybody else would have done. I talked to my boss. I told him, I need you to support this program. Says, what can I do? I'm like, can come set house? I said, yes, that's my house. Nobody will carry out. So for 2 years, the president would send you, the best farmer, a card from the president. The president of the network of Uganda is very to invite you to State House. You were up there.
Yes.
So for 2 years, we went into State House. And then, of course, State House security started getting jittery. We don't know where these people are coming from, and I'm like, what I told her about. So once again, I told the president, your secretary is saying this and the other. I said, so what do we do now? Like, okay, you keep supporting me. Let us go and do this at my research centers, because those are mine. And it was fantastic. I remember when we went to Kawanda, it was beautiful. Now, when we went to Kawanda, that was the beginning of the problem. It was so good. Some people, some embassies were so generous, even for me. I couldn't believe it. Because when somebody says, because you are doing this competition, I'm giving you 10, I'll call them scholarships. Meaning, 10 of your best farmers are going to travel to the United States. And they won't pay a thing. Everything is paid for 6 weeks. So that would be the Americans, then the Danish, then the British, then the Egyptians, then we had Zimbabwe, Kenya, and then Uganda. So by the time we were done, and of course the other companies, business companies, a inbound company which gave me 3 tractors, another one gave me 1 tractor, and so on and so forth. The prices were out of this world. In fact, one of the people who bought a tractor, called me to say, but I will say it in Uganda first, Mama, ukasa sina chensa sura.
Yes, are you sure there's, and this is mine?
Yes.
Free.
Nothing.
Wow.
So he says, I say, no, there's nothing for you to pay. And he's like, I need to get the card. But the card should be there in your names. Oh, there is an envelope here. He had not written the envelope.
Yes.
He says, so this is real. Now, when you start creating such situations, and of course these people tell and tell and tell, not everybody is exactly clapping. So one day, I was actually the topic for discussion. I arrived in cabinet, because my office used to be in Entebbe, and cabinet used to be in Entebbe. And normal, as you know, it is the people who are nearest who arrive late. So I was a bit late. By the time I get there, everybody had arrived. And they were still outside because the president had not yet come. And I see them in little groups. So when I've done this, who is my relative by marriage, calls me aside and says, Mucha, do you see all those groups they are discussing here? I'm like, man, that you are given a bigger budget, that you are favored, that you are this. Anyway, we get into cabinet. President Museveni may have his weaknesses, but his strong points are so strong. It is.
Yes.
We get into cabinet and he's cheering around the first item on the agenda. And he says, there are these complaints, we had better handle it. Somebody puts up his hand to explain. Can somebody explain to me what this young girl has done. So they start complaining it is not fair. We all have a budget. It is given publicly, but it looks like afterwards, some people are given monies on the side. The president, of course, looks shocked, surprised. They say, what? I've heard you? Oh, no, yeah, if it is going to be there, let us all be told, let us all be given money, let us all be on the same page. But some people seem to be maybe taking the access to State House, because I'm in a terrain. They don't be too far. Yes. So, the president did for me one of the best things that anybody could have done. He let the whole cabinet talk meanings. You see what is going on. And I can putting up my hand. At the end of the day, actually, I didn't speak. Because the last person to speak by them was, at that time, Makona Chiong, was Minister of Finance, was the last one to speak. So the president said, tell us, where and how have you been giving Sekitoleko more money? This is, I don't even know what they are talking about. Fortunately, everything is documented. Yeah. She has never been asked for an extra shilling. So he looks at me and says, you want nothing to add. Next item. But after that, how do you feel about your colleagues? I know. Yeah. So once again, because I was already in the process of my exit, I'm like, okay, let us stop. You know, somebody, you call somebody because there are people like Leto Pakaplo, let Dante Gozi, those people. We used to go to a watering ball afterwards in order to talk. So it is actually Wapakaplo who put everything in context. See, the president did you the best favor. Now you know what we all think.
Yes, that's the thing. Wow.
Yeah.
Without knowing.
So that was a difficult moment. But like I said, it was okay because I was on my way.
Yeah. So now you're in the place where, like you said, always on the move. One of the moves we have to make as leaders is retirement.
Yep.
So did you see that leave approaching? Did it just happen upon you? How did, because for some, but circumstances force you out, and for others you prepare. So which was yours?
For me, first of all, when I joined politics, I remember I had a nephew at that time. It was called Makola, but I was Amsterdam nephew. So my Amsterdam nephew comes to see me, to congratulate me for the appointment and says, but mom, you are so young. What will happen when you are dropped? So here you are celebrating like a month into appointment and somebody is already pointing you at the end, which I think was good. So I told him, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. So fortunately, I last for 9 years and I'm glad I managed my own exit.
Yes.
So once again, that exit did not happen overnight. I remember like 3 years before I left, I got to the president and I told him, I don't think I'm going to continue with politics for a long time. So I want to start preparing for my exit. And say, how? Said, I want to go back to school. Says, how do you do that? I just want to learn French because I want to join an international organization. So he asked me, have you taken your leave? I'm like, no, take your leave. I'll approve. So I take 3 months leave. Oh, yeah, because I had not rested for all the 7 years I had been there. And I go to France, plan French. And the French embassy pays for everything. Oh, they give me the tickets. It looks like I'm a person of scholarship.
You know, right? Or favor. Favor, yes. It's hence your beginning. I am blessed. Yes, you are.
And I told you God is always in my cause. So, I go to France. I learn my French. And I come back here. The chances of practicing your French are very few. But anyway, a year later, I get that job. I go to Zimbabwe where they don't speak the language. And I stayed in Zimbabwe for a cool 10 years. Now, when you are a United Nations person, when they appoint you, in the appointment letter, they will normally say, Victoria Sekitoleko, you are appointed at this and this at this time and whatever. And your contract is for so many years. But in any case, we always have an NTE, not a date not to be exceeded. Come 23rd March 2011, Rupert Kamna. Because
on your birthday?
Yes, we say on our birthdays.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So at that time, retirement was at 62 years. So as soon as you turn 62, you're out on there. Therefore, whether you are appointed when you are 30, 25 or whatever,
Even 60.
exactly. You know that 2 years from now, you will not be there. And actually, the United Nations takes the last 2 years before you actually retire, preparing you for the same. What I found very interesting is that whether you're retiring in your home country or the adopted country, and maybe you got married and you are going with your husband, whatever, they prepare you. And we were told, we who are returning to our home countries, that it is going to be even more difficult for us to integrate, basically because I was away for 17 years. So I was told that everybody has moved on.
Yes, indeed.
Don't go and expect maybe your personal assistant, former personal assistant.
Yes.
Don't go and expect.
Oh, yeah, it's on the move. The word is also always on the move.
Exactly. So, and now that you have been, because United Nations is always about deadlines and traveling to this place, to the other place. Now that you are going to retire, you had better prepare yourself to deploy yourself so that you can keep yourself busy. Because from now on, you won't have a boss unless you want to go home and start looking for the guild. So that is one. Two, if you have been in the limelight, because like I was a director, you are, like at that time when I retired, I was in China. And when you are in the UN, when you introduce yourself, let's say if you are the FAO representative in Uganda, your name is Victoria Sekitoleko, FAO Uganda. Now, Uganda is going to follow. We're just going to keep Victoria Sekitoleko. In other words, start looking at yourself. Who are you without the job? Because in quite a number of cases, people even forget there is a young minister I know. These days when that minister is introducing self, they just say the minister. Does not even say the name. So, but the UN prepares you for this retirement, and that is when I continued concretizing my retirement program. I had always wanted to promote reading, so my plan was to set up some rural private libraries. So the private as in management, but as for use for the public. Unfortunately, many Ugandans are not used to that notion of going somewhere in order to read. Because when you go through Kampala, Uganda, whatever part of Uganda you pass, at any one time, you see people sitting there talking about what you built now. And they talk about it today, tomorrow, and the day after. So I'm like, what if they use that time to read? So I set up these libraries. Like I said, they are not easy to run, but it is doable. And a few are still going on. Like we have one at Bukoto. It is temporarily closed because we are refurbishing the place, but the library will be there. We had one in Mafrovira, which is relocating, so it will definitely be there. We had one in Dondo, which is next to the LC3, so it will be there. Basically, because when I was young, I used to love to read, but my father, I told you about being thrown out of school, could not, after paying for what was mandatory, find money to buy novels and others. So I decided that if I couldn't have it, I'll make sure that other will have it. So the reading, that one I will promote until the day I die. When I had just retired, how was I doing it? I've told you about these libraries. So we would now and then, like once a month, organize a reading competition. Then I would go to this center. For as long as you have about 5 schools, that's good enough for us. So we bring in the different schools and they compete. P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6, P7. And it went on very well until, unfortunately, teachers started telling lies. And they would bring a P4 girl and present her as a P2 girl. But unfortunately, children are not very good liars. So the child has read very well and she said, this is P2. So you go there to say hello and I'm there with the microphone and the child is there. Tell me your name again. Do you have only one name? So when were you born? Where do you stay? Is your mother here? When did you start going to school? Then they say, oh, and everybody's like, it is very, very discouraging. Big for me. The annoyance was, you are a teacher, Jackie. How do you start conniving with a P2 kid to cheat? What for? So, but all the same, I have not yet given up. Of late, I have been involving myself once again in international issues, and I'm on my way to dropping there. Because when I was retiring, I told everybody, but most importantly myself, that the remaining times for Uganda.
Wow, so preparation is very key.
Oh yeah,
I'm hearing from.
oh yeah. So as I said, I prepared to do the libraries because I love moving and I love sharing. So I had to create my own system through which I share. Then two, when I went to Zimbabwe, I get there and they have all sorts of schools which don't exist here. There was a school for counseling where you go, you don't have to be a health person or whatever, because here counseling is tied to health. This has nothing to do with that. You go there, maybe you are the head of the clan, you are a teacher, you are starting a school, whatever. You go and learn counseling. So I enrolled, went and learned counseling. While I was at it, I discovered they had a school where they teach public speaking. I had never seen one. So when I came back, I started one. And I remember when we had just started, most people just couldn't understand what I was talking about. Even recently as last week, when we went to Gayaza, because young Gayaza girls were asking, we here teach public speaking. Exactly what would you be teaching me?
Yes.
But you know why? Many Ugandans are superbly intelligent. They know what they're talking about, whatever. But because the schools have stopped teaching debating, even the classes are so huge, people no longer read out loud, so there is no practice. The first time you are more or less one-on-one is during maybe an interview. So you look at this CV, you listen to this person, and you keep losing, but you connecting. Yeah, because when I tell you I'm holding your CV, Jackie, and I'm like, Turkey, tell me about yourself. And you start reading the CV to me. You see, I went to Jinja. So I told the people, we are going to teach you to how to speak in public. And there are quite a number of people who you know, but I don't have their permission, so I cannot tell you that they went through our school. But this includes people like judges, people, those members of parliament, even them both people through that. The test that happened was when Makerere University approached us to teach people who had done their masters, and they were doing, I think they called them fellows, something in between masters and PhD. And we told them we need 2 weeks. So the professor is there 2 weeks. I said, yes. So 2 weeks later, we had a graduation. The one interesting thing which I always remember is that the whole department turned up. This was a Department of Medicine. They all turned up for the graduation to see what it was all about.
Yes.
So I loved it because my thinking is that for anybody doing public health should actually be a public speaker. Because your job is picture that I don't foresee. How will I know unless you tell me? And how will I accept unless you talk it where? Yeah, so I was going to promote reading. I was going to do reading competitions, which I'm not going to give up. I'm also going to promote debates. Now, starting 2024 onwards, I'm going to promote debates. And then I continue with the teaching people public speaking. By the time I'm done with all that, and of course, advocating for agribusiness and women. By the time I'm done with that, even if I don't travel out of Uganda or Teban, there's enough work got up on.
Yeah, yes, wow. So how would you advise, as we come to the close of this conversation, this season that you're in, how does one thrive? What would you advise a leader who is looking there and thinking, looks dark, it looks, I don't know what will happen.
Yeah. You know, in the Bible, there is the sower's parable where the seeds fell everywhere, including the thorns.
Yes.
The one thing I've learned after studying that parable for some time, is that quite a number of thorns which take our seats are imaginary. And because, like when you are young, the thorns are things like, because that is when your brain is really crowded. Just crowded with things like, you want to argue with this one, and then you want to reason with this one. It gives us really there, and so on and so forth. But when you are older, most of that has already sunk in. Then you start manufacturing the new thorns. You start imagining, this girl has not been visiting me. Maybe she came to check and see if I'm about to die. Hey, that is really an imaginary thought. Just get on with your life. So for me, how do I deal with that? What I have told everybody who has had time to listen to me, I no longer have time to go and look up older people and make them my friends. These days, the younger, the better. The other day I was talking to a friend, a colleague who worked with her somewhere. I met her daughter somewhere, completely independent of, in fact, she was surprised, she's shocked to say that is. So I talk to this girl, she tells me what she wants to do, what she's doing and all that. And I like her. So when I come back, I find this friend at a party. Then I'm like, oh, I'm glad you're here, I want to talk to you. Says what? I want to grandmother your child. It is such a joy working with young people that because for them they are young, they ask all those sorts of questions, some of which you better experience. But I love the young one. Yeah. So that is why I spend most of my time with the young ones. You hear me going to Iganga, my junior school. I'm now the chair of the board of trustees for the school, and I spend a bit of time there. I go to Gayaza nearly every other month. I'm there because I love young people. Wow. Yeah. So like I said, then some old people will tell you that they don't like them. In fact, they wish them dead. Who cares? This is your life. That is what they wish. That is what they think. Why are you accepting it? Yes. So for me, what I've decided is to enjoy my life. I've already made my will. I've already actually given away some of the things, so there is no argument there. So when God decides, I'm really happy that I am here until now. Because as you and I know, some people die at birth, others don't make it to 5, others don't make it 50. So for me, on the 7th deck, 7th deck. Wow. Victoria, thank you so much for taking us through your journey of reaching here up to the 7th deck. And what I hear you saying, even as we wind down, is find the things that connect with your ears, that excite you, that resonate with you, those things you wanted to do and now have the time and space to do, and keep connected to young people. I think it's really that fountain of youth that we look for. It's not in the Botox, it's in young people. Thank you for listening to us, those of us who have been on this episode with Victoria Sekitoleko. Thank you for having me. Until the next guest, see you later. Bye.